Let's dive right into this explainer because, well, before the ink was even dry on the absolute biggest blockbuster trade of the year, there was this massive clue hiding right in plain sight: $29.2 million. Back in the spring, the Cleveland Browns made this quiet but honestly incredibly significant move. They delayed a $29.2 million option bonus for Myles Garrett from March all the way to September. And if you were really paying attention, that delayed payment, that was the smoke signal. It was literally the very first indicator that the Browns were legitimately reconsidering the future of their reigning Defensive Player of the Year. And the tension just kept building right up until the news broke. Picture this, okay? Browns general manager Andrew Berry is at the Firestone Country Club for a foundation golf outing. Rumors are absolutely swirling on social media. When the press corners him, he gives this incredibly cautious quote: "Nothing is final at this point, hopeful that we close something here in the next several hours." You can tell he's trying to keep the focus on the charity event, but man, he knows he's standing on the precipice of completely altering the landscape of the NFL. Just a few hours later, the bombshell actually dropped.
So, welcome to the Garrett Blockbuster, a tale of two franchises.
All right, let's just lay out the baseline facts of the actual exchange here. The Los Angeles Rams are getting 7-time All-Pro pass rusher Myles Garrett. That's huge. In return, the Cleveland Browns receive 25-year-old, 2-time Pro Bowler Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round draft pick, and some additional draft considerations. So we're talking about a truly massive haul going in both directions.
Section 1. The Rams' perspective, going all in again.
So why exactly did the Rams aggressively acquire a veteran superstar when they've actually spent the last few years drafting so incredibly well? Well, if you look at GM Les Snead and head coach Sean McVay's track record, you'll see this aggressive all-in mentality is just deeply embedded in their DNA. We saw it during their Super Bowl 56 run, right, when they went out and acquired Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford. We literally just saw it 3 months ago when they traded for Chiefs All-Pro corner Trent McDuffie, and now we see it today with Myles Garrett. Trading for star veterans is basically just what this regime does when they smell blood in the water.
But the crucial question is, why right now? Well, it's because the Rams are shoving all their chips to the middle of the table to capitalize on Matthew Stafford's current championship window. And they have a very specific destination in mind for this: Super Bowl 61. That game is being hosted right in their home stadium. They want to turn the ultimate game into a home game, exactly like they did a few years ago. And Myles Garrett, he is the ultimate piece to make that happen.
Now, you might be wondering how they could even afford this. Drafting quarterback Ty Simpson at number 13 overall wasn't just about helping Stafford right now. It actually gave the Rams the ultimate flexibility. Because they officially secured their quarterback succession plan, they suddenly didn't need to hoard their 2027 and 2028 first-round picks to draft Stafford's replacement down the line. They were totally free to package that future capital to go out and get a difference maker of the absolute highest order.
Section 2. The Browns' perspective, resetting with youth.
Now, let's flip over to the other side of this trade and see how things look for Cleveland, because their perspective is all about a highly methodical, analytical roster reset. And we really have to start with the stark financial reality here: $50 million. When Garrett signed his latest contract back in 2025, his $40 million annual average was the bar. But recently, thanks to deals like Will Anderson Jr.'s down in Houston, that top-of-the-market benchmark shot way up to $50 million annually. So the Browns had to coldly evaluate if paying that kind of premium actually aligned with where their roster was at right now.
Which naturally brings up the biggest question of all, right? Why on earth trade a franchise icon, a guy whose name is basically going to be on the stadium, who's totally destined for Canton just 45 minutes down the road? Well, Garrett himself actually kind of set the wheels in motion. Back in February 2025, during Super Bowl week, he requested a trade. And even though that request was eventually rescinded, it forced the Browns brass to at least ponder the unthinkable and start modeling what a return for him might actually look like.
But listen, GM Andrew Berry was absolutely not going to accept some standard 2 first-round picks package. He had 3 strict, non-negotiable trade principles for this. Number 1, the deal had to serve both short and long-term goals. Number 2, it had to include a cost-controlled young star at a premium position. And number 3, it had to yield premium draft capital on top of that player. They were definitely not letting a generational player like Garrett go for just lottery tickets. This whole strategy really brings us to a foundational team-building concept called timeline syncing. Basically, this means aligning your player acquisitions with the age, contract status, and competitive window of your core roster. The
The Browns realized that their 2020 and 2022 playoff core had effectively aged out. They desperately needed to sync their top-tier talent with their new window. And this concept brilliantly illustrates exactly why Jared Verse was the absolute linchpin of this entire transaction. Think about it. Jared Verse is 25 years old. He has 2 full years left on his rookie deal, plus a 5th-year option for 2028. Now compare that directly to the Browns' recent draft picks, guys like Carson Schwessinger, Mason Graham, and Quinshon Judkins. They're all in their early 20s. Verse perfectly matches the timeline of Cleveland's burgeoning young core. It's like a giant puzzle, and they just swapped an aging legend for a young star who's going to hit his absolute prime exactly when the rest of this newly drafted roster does. I also just want to briefly point out the specific date this happened. Waiting until Monday, June 1st was a highly calculated salary cap strategy. By executing the trade with a post-June 1 designation, Cleveland is able to take Garrett's massive cap charge and divide it over 2 separate league years. It really softens the financial blow of the entire reset. Like I said, it's just incredibly methodical and analytical on their part.
Section 3. The verdict. 2 timelines, 1 blockbuster.
So let's bring both philosophical halves of our explainer together here. What we've got is a super rare scenario in professional sports, where 2 completely divergent paths intersect perfectly. Step 1. Los Angeles gets the ultimate defensive game wrecker to maximize Matthew Stafford's final years and really aggressively chase that home Super Bowl. And step 2, Cleveland gets a premium 25-year-old pass rusher and future first-round draft capital to construct their next championship window. Both teams basically got exactly what their specific timeline demanded. Which really leaves us with this final, pretty provocative question. When a single trade simultaneously fuels an immediate Super Bowl window for one franchise and a methodical, brilliant youth reset for another, who truly wins the exchange? I mean, is it the team that lifts the Lombardi Trophy today or the team that builds a sustainable dynasty for tomorrow? Definitely think about that as you watch these 2 teams take the field this season. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely